In May 2026, an insect became the most popular political symbol in the world's largest democracy. In just 6 days, a satirical entity known as the Cockroach Party amassed more social media followers than the ruling party itself. While observers interpreted this as a viral prank, millions of citizens rallied around a cockroach because they are exhausted by a system that consistently produces a choice between bad and worse. Curious, leaning in. Public discourse traditionally blames these democratic failures on the moral corruption of individuals, the strategic maneuvering of dominant parties, or weak opposition. However, an institutional perspective suggests that politicians act as rational actors, responding to the specific incentives of their operating environment. That environment is a direct inheritance from the British Empire's administrative framework, a set of rules established as far back as 1885 that was designed for colonial management rather than representative democracy. The primary impediment to clean governance is the mechanism that tallies the votes, the first-past-the-post system. Under first-past-the-post, a candidate does not need an absolute majority of more than 50% to win a seat. They merely need to secure more votes than any other individual competitor on the ballot. Consider 10 individuals trying to order a single shared meal. 4 vote for pizza, 3 for biryani, and 3 for burgers. In this system, pizza is declared the absolute winner. However, the aggregate preference reveals that 60% of the table explicitly rejected pizza in favor of other options. The system disregards the preferences of the majority. This distortion reflects the macro-level reality of Indian governance. In the last 3 general elections, governing mandates were built on popular vote shares of approximately 31%, 37%, and 36%. Consequently, for nearly a generation, close to 69% of the voting populace did not choose the political party responsible for directing federal policy. The system regularly manufactures a mandate from a fragmented minority. This math introduces 3 distinct structural vulnerabilities into the democratic fabric. In a multi-cornered contest, the mathematical threshold for victory can drop to as little as 25 to 28% of the total votes cast. Take a typical constituency of 2 million voters. The electorate is fractured. 30% are Jats, 22% are Dalits, 12% are Yadavs, and so on. An aspiring politician will quickly realize that the mathematically optimal path to power involves targeting a concentrated demographic bloc, like that 30% group, and guaranteeing them exclusive patronage, state contracts, and jobs. Once the seat is won with a 28% vote share, the remaining 72% of the constituency is effectively marginalized from the local patronage network for the duration of the 5-year term. This system actively punishes inclusive behavior. If an honest representative attempts to redistribute state resources equitably by funding projects for other communities, they risk alienating their core voting bloc. Rival factions will exploit this shift, branding the incumbent a defector to their community's interests. Even if the representative gains marginal support elsewhere, they lose enough of their foundational bloc to lose the seat. The algorithm traps politicians in a zero-sum cage, structurally penalizing broad inclusivity and rewarding the institutionalization of identity-based arithmetic. The second vulnerability is the suppression of innovative ideas. Imagine a reformist movement builds an electoral base of 15 million dedicated voters across the country on a platform of environmental sustainability and economic reform. Because these voters are distributed organically across all 543 constituencies, their local density is highly diluted. On average, this movement nets only about 1.5% of the total ballot per district. Under these rules, a consistent 1.5% vote share yields exactly 0 legislative seats. The system does not reward broad popularity. It exclusively rewards geographical concentration. This leads to the third vulnerability, the neglect of diffuse interests. India's 63 million small and medium enterprises form the backbone of the industrial economy. But because these business owners are scattered thin across all constituencies, political parties face a strong structural disincentive to prioritize their legislative needs. Compare this to the rapid transformations of South Korea, Singapore, and China. Their political machinery was geared toward long-term human capital accumulation and national modernization. But in contrast, India's architecture forced its leaders to micromanage the redistribution of private goods and group-specific privileges. While rivals engineered systems for modernization, India's architecture prioritized the arithmetic of the identity block. To address these distortions, political scientists point to the mixed-member proportional framework, utilized by post-war Germany to build a resilient and representative democratic structure. The core mechanic gives every citizen 2 votes. The first selects a local representative from a geographic district. The second determines the overall composition of parliament. If a party wins 10% of the national vote, they receive 10% of the parliamentary seats. Critics claim proportional representation inevitably leads to unstable coalition governments that stall economic progress. However, India's modern economic foundation was largely built under coalitions. The structural economic liberalization of 1991 was executed under a minority administration. The Golden Quadrilateral Project and the Telecom Revolution were implemented by a 24-party coalition. Major frameworks, from the Right to Information Act to Aadhaar, were products of multi-party governance. Proportional representation doesn't invent coalitions, it simply makes them a mathematically accurate reflection of public intent. There are serious institutional risks to unconstrained proportional systems. In Italy, low entry thresholds resulted in extreme political instability and 69 distinct governments since 1946. Germany uses 2 firewalls: a 5% national hurdle to filter out fringe factions, and the constructive vote of no confidence, preventing a government's dismissal unless a successor is already agreed upon. Despite guidance from the Law Commission of India recommending these adjustments to correct electoral distortions, no administration has pursued them. This is because the power to amend the Constitution rests with the exact political entities that benefit from the current system, winning outsized legislative power on minority vote shares. India cannot build a $30 trillion economy by 2047 on a divisive colonial algorithm. To realize its developmental goals, the nation must first fix the math.